Okay, so a guy called Will Storr was once voted New Journalist of the Year and Feature Writer of the Year. He's worked for The Times, The Independent, The Observer, The Face, The Mirror, also for Loaded Magazine, for Q, and High Life, and currently Arena Magazine. And on one assignment, he was sent off to see if he could find a ghost. The result of that article was a year-long search for the truth about ghosts. Will Storr Vs the Supernatural is the result. The end result is a great, great book, and Will Storr's our guest now. Hello, Will.
Hello, how you doing?
Very good, yeah, thanks very much for coming in. So that's right, you're not a paranormal expert, or you weren't at all, you're just a normal, regular journalist.
Yeah, this is it, yeah. I mean, the whole idea was that, because I was very, very sceptical about ghosts and anything to do with the supernatural, religion. You know, I was brought up in a very strict Catholic household and always thought it was just ridiculous, the whole thing. And so I found a website from a guy called Lou Gentili, who calls himself a demonologist, and, you know, says he goes around kind of hunting for ghosts. I just thought this was hilarious. So I pitched it as a story and said, look, this guy, he's American, he's obviously a nutcase, it's going to be really funny, we're going to follow him around for a couple of nights and just make fun of him, you know, that was basically the idea. So I went along there and just ended up being absolutely terrified.
Where was there? What?
There was Philadelphia.
Right.
Philadelphia and kind of its environs. So, the first night, it was like a 3-hour drive out to a house which he said was built on a graveyard, and I thought, well, yeah, it's, you know, the classic, you know, B-movie thing. I was expecting them to be, you know, the family to be a bit insane, or whoever that was claiming that these ghosts were there were to be a bit crazy, you know, because a bit, you know, they're American too, so expecting it to be a bit like that. But they were so normal, and that was the first thing that kind of freaked me out. They were like, you know, classic middle class, normal family, 2 kids, 2 dogs. The mum owned the local delicatessen. The dad was a physical education instructor in a local prison, so very straight, normal people. And genuinely terrified. I mean, you could tell when we walked in the door, they were panicking. They were, you know, it was like, what is going on? We need to know what's going on. So that kind of freaked me out a bit. I was thinking, oh, this isn't what I was expecting at all. But I was still like, well, you know, this is ridiculous. So the first thing that happened was that Lou set up, you know, he says we'll look for what he called ghost lights, but what I've since found out in Britain we call orbs, but he called them ghost lights. So he said, you know, which are these balls of ghostly energy. And he set up an infrared camera to look up the stairs where, you know, a lot of phenomena had been experienced. There'd also been stuff happened in an upstairs bedroom. So we sat there for hours watching this screen and nothing happened, and I was just thinking, oh, this is really boring and not actually that funny. I was getting a bit annoyed. And then about 3 a.m, Deborah, the mum, said, oh, I'm really cold, I'm going to go upstairs and fetch a blanket. So she goes upstairs and we watch her on the screen walking up the stairs, and the moment she hits the stairs, this big orb of light appears by her head, follows her up the stairs, and then she turns right towards her bedroom. The light turns left towards the children's bedroom where a lot of activity had been reported, and as soon as it's in there, there's a massive crash. And as soon as there's this massive crash, something touches my back, and I kind of leap up and swear loudly. And I think it was in the space of those few seconds, I had to kind of radically reassess, you know, my opinion on the whole thing. And then the next night was even more terrifying. So yeah, that whole experience.
Why was the next night more terrifying?
Because there was just so much more activity. Later on the first night, he showed us EVP, which I'm sure as a lot of your listeners know, electronic voice phenomena, which is, you know, voices of spirits which are caught on tape. And we had some of those. So the next night we went to this house in a place called Westchester, and it was a lady called Kathy Gagnell, and her story was her father had died 5 years previously. She started using a Ouija board, and it was working, and she was thinking, great, because I'm talking to my dad, and it's amazing, because, you know, I miss my dad, I'm talking to my dad. And then what would happen is that she'd see her dad in the night, and she would wake up, and there'd be this big black shadow standing by her bed, and then her bed would be start shaking and being pulled around, and then I remember, never forget, because she said, you know, she looked at me, she said, but then I thought, why would my dad come and scare me in the night? And that's when she became terrified, because, like, what have I done? What have I opened up here? So that's when she called Lou in. So anyway, the first thing he does is he sets his camera up and trains it on the kitchen where there's been a lot of activity. And as soon as he turns the screen on, there are these ghost lights just everywhere. I mean, it is frantic. They're, you know, I was told after this by a parapsychologist who was very sceptical, saying, well, this is either dust or it's insects. But these things were, you know, moving in a strange way. They were zipping about and changing in right angles in the middle of the air. They were throbbing in and out in the middle of the air. I went and had a look in there. There was nothing in the air. It was really, really quite scary. And then kind of later, we got some more EVP, and the thing about the EVP which we got this night, although we couldn't make out actual words on either night, but what was happening was he had this digital dictaphone that has a red LED on it that flashes when it's picking up sound. So he puts it down and presses record and says, are there any spirits in the house with me now? And then there's silence, and then the LED starts flashing, even though we can't hear anything. And when you play it back, there's this kind of growling, kind of static-y kind of sound that's, you can kind of make out what sound like words, but it's too hard to work out exactly what it is. And my initial thought of this was maybe he pre-recorded a tape and was just playing it again. So I did things like I coughed in the background and made noise, so I could, when he played it back, I could check that my noises were on there, and they were on there, so this stuff was happening live, whatever it was. And the first night, they were kind of... the tone of voice was different. The first night they kind of seemed a bit more relaxed and calm, but the second night, my God, they were terrifying as well. It's like they were angry and they were shouting and they were going "Roar!" like that, and it was, the whole thing was just awful. And then after all that, he made me sit in the kitchen on my own, and it was just a nightmare. And there was knocking on the walls. I saw sort of sparks of light around by my feet, and it was just the whole thing. And that was when it became a bit of a... I came home and I didn't come home and think, well, that's it, ghosts exist. I came home and thought, I can't explain any of that. It's all weird. It's all, like Lou isn't like a trickster. He's not in it for business. He doesn't charge anybody doing this. He runs a central heating engineer company. He doesn't, all he asks his clients for is to pay his petrol. So he does it, because he would drop in a haunted house and was always told he was crazy, and he does it out of this kind of feeling of kind of missionary zeal, because he feels for people who are in a similar situation to him. And he wasn't a rich man. He doesn't have a big special effects budget. He just had a tape player and a camera, and that was it. So I couldn't think my way around it. I couldn't rationalise it. I thought, well, maybe he's a con man, but no, he can't. So that made me think, well, I've got to find out now. I have to find out, the truth about ghosts and what on earth is going on.
And then the journey that you went on after that is absolutely incredible. I mean, I think one of my favourite interviews that you did was in regards to the Enfield poltergeist, because anyone who is interested in the paranormal, it's one of the first kind of ports of call that you go and look at. And I printed off some of the photographs to show Chris, because he'd never seen them before. And this is Janet. And how old was Janet when this was happening?
I think she was 12.
Yeah.
She looks like a lunatic. She does. Yeah. She looks like she's been jumping up and down on her bed, and she's been captured in the photograph in mid-air.
Well, she must be
and in theory,
a lunatic
that's because she's being thrown across the room, but really it's because she's been bouncing on her bed.
But look at the 70s pop star she was into. She must have been mad.
Oh, yeah.
That's the worst thing, is when you get to be a grown-up, and I've forgotten his name, actually. Anyway, never mind. It's not really about him.